Chapter 15, Section 1, Growing Tensions Between North and South. Disagreements between the North and the South, especially over the issue of slavery, led to political conflict. Regional differences can make national problems difficult to resolve. One European story. Alexis Tocqueville was a young French government official from a wealthy family. In 1831, he sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to study American prisons and politics. At one point, Tocqueville traveled in a steamship down the Ohio River. The river was the border between Ohio, a free state, and Kentucky, a slave state. Tocqueville noted what he saw on both sides of the river. The state of Ohio is separated from Kentucky by just one river. On either side of it, the soil is equally fertile and the situation equally favorable, and yet everything is different. Here, on the Ohio side, a population devoured by feverish activity, trying every means to make its fortune. There, on the Kentucky side, are people who make others work for them and show little compassion, a people without energy, mettle, or the spirit of enterprise. These differences cannot be attributed to any other cause but slavery. It degrades the black population and enslaves and invenerates the energy of the white. In this section, you will read about the differences between the North and the South. You will also read about how these differences cause political tensions that threaten to tear the nation apart. North and South take different paths. As you read in Chapter 11, the economies of the North and the South developed differently in the early 1800s. Although both economies were mostly agricultural, the North began to develop more industry and commerce. By contrast, the Southern economy relied on plantation farming. The growth industry in the North helped lead to the rapid growth of northern cities. Much of this population growth came from immigration. In addition, immigrants and Easterners moved west and built farms in the new states formed from the Northwest Territory. Most canals and railroads ran east and west, helping the eastern and midwestern states develop strong ties with each other. The South developed differently than the North. A few wealthy planters controlled Southern society. They made great profits from the labor of their slaves. Much of this profit came from trade. Planters relied on exports, especially cotton. Because these plantations were profitable, planters invested in slaves instead of industries. As a result, the South developed little industry. Most Southern whites were poor farmers who owned no slaves. Many of these people resented the powerful slaveholders, but poor whites accepted slavery because it kept them off the bottom of society. I'll give you a little diagram here on how trades work. Trade is based on a simple idea. If you have something someone else needs or wants, and that person has something you need or want, you exchange or trade those things. After the trade, you should both be better off than before. The concept of trade works similarly for groups of people. For example, in the early 1800s, the South had few factories. Planters who wanted manufactured goods usually had to buy them from manufacturers in the North or Europe. To have cash to buy those goods, Southerners sold other goods, such as cotton, to the North and other countries. Each sold goods that they could produce in order to get money to buy the goods they could not make. The Southerners make cotton and sell it for cash. The Northerners make clothes and finished goods, this is a plow, and sell those or trade with them to the South. Anti-slavery and racism. The issue of slavery caused tension between the North and the South. In the North, the anti-slavery movement had slowly began gaining strength in the 1830s. Abolitionists believed that slavery was unjust and should be abolished immediately. Many Northerners who opposed slavery took a less extreme position. Some Northern workers and immigrants opposed slavery because it was an economic threat to them. Because slaves did not work for pay, free workers feared that managers would employ slaves rather than them. Some workers were even afraid that the expansion of slavery might force workers into slavery to find jobs. Despite their opposition to slavery, most Northerners, even abolitionists, were racist by most standards. Many whites refused to go to school with, work with, or live near African Americans. In most states, even free African Americans could not vote. When Northern attacks on slavery increased, Southerners defended slavery. Most offered the openly racist argument that white people were superior to blacks. Many also claimed that slavery helped slaves by introducing them to Christianity, as well as providing them with food and clothing and shelter throughout their lives. Slaveholders were determined to defend slavery and their way of life. In this way, the different ideas about slavery brought the North and the South into conflict. The Wilmot Proviso. After the Missouri Compromise of 1820, political arguments over slavery seemed to go away, but new disagreements arose with the outbreak of the war with Mexico in 1846. Many Northerners believed that Southerners wanted to take territory from Mexico in order to extend slavery. To prevent that, Representative David Wilmot of Pennsylvania proposed a bill known as the Wilmot Proviso to outlaw slavery in any territory the United States might acquire from war with Mexico. But slaveholders believed that Congress had no right to prevent them from bringing slaves into any territories. They viewed slaves as property. The Constitution, they claimed, gave equal protection to property rights of all U.S. citizens. The Wilmot Proviso removed the right of slaveholders to take their slaves, which they regarded as property, anywhere in the United States or its territories. Southerners claimed that the bill was unconstitutional. The Wilmot Proviso divided Congress along regional lines. The bill passed the House of Representatives, but Southerners prevented it from passing the Senate. Even though the Wilmot Proviso never became law, it had an important effect. It led to the creation of the Free Soil Party, a political party dedicated to stopping the expansion of slavery. The party's slogan expressed its ideals: free soil, free speech, free labor, and free men. The Free Soil Party won more than 10 seats in Congress in the election of 1848. More important, the party made slavery a key issue in national politics. Politicians could ignore slavery no longer. Controversy over territories. In 1848, the nation's leaders had begun to debate how to deal with slavery in the lands gained from the war with Mexico. The proposed additions of new states threatened the balance in Congress between the North and the South. The discovery of gold in California brought thousands of people into that territory. There would soon be enough people in California for it to apply for statehood. Most California residents wanted their state to be a free state. But this would tip the balance of power clearly in favor of the North. Southerners wanted to divide California in half, making the North half free and the South half a slave state. In 1849, President Zachary Taylor proposed that California submit a plan for statehood that year, without going through the territorial stage. By skipping this stage, Taylor's plan gave Southern slaveholders little time to move to California with their slaves. In March 1850, California applied to be admitted as a free state. With California as a free state, slave states would become the minority in the Senate, just as they were in the House. Jefferson Davis, a senator from Mississippi, warned, for the first time, we are about permanently to destroy the balance of power between the sections. The Compromise of 1850. California could not gain statehood, however, without the approval of Congress, and Congress was divided over the issue. Behind the scenes, statements sought compromise. Taking the lead was Senator Henry Clay of Kentucky. Clay helped create the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Now Clay crafted a plan to settle the California problem. To please California, he would be admitted as a free state, and the slave trade would be abolished in Washington, D.C. To please the South, Congress would not pass laws regarding slavery for the rest of the territories won from Mexico, and Congress would pass a stronger law to help slaveholders recapture runaway slaves. Many people on both sides felt they had to give up too much in this plan, but others were tired of the regional bickering. They wanted to hold the Union together. Daniel Webster, senator from Massachusetts, supported the compromise for the sake of the Union. I wish to speak today, not as a Massachusetts man, nor as a Northern man, but as an American. I speak today for the preservation of the Union. Hear me for my cause. The job of winning the passage of the bill fell to Senator Stephen Douglas of Illinois. By the end of September, Douglas seceded, and the plan, now known as the Compromise of 1850, became law. Some people celebrated the compromise, believing it had saved the Union. But the compromise would not bring peace. In the next section, you will learn how sectional tensions continued to rise.